I like Wuthering Waves. Of all the gacha games I have played, it's probably the game with the best, well, gameplay. The only contender being Archimeds, and that's mostly thanks to integrated strategies. The combat is fluid, the exploration is spectacular once you reach the Black Shores, and overall, the feel of the world is strangely fantastical. While there are some issues that might become a problem in the future, as of now, it's a really good game. But what it has consistently struggled with is its story, and to an extent, world building. Ever since beta, it has had these problems, so once I actually caught up to the game during 2.2 and I was hearing all about how great of a story 2.2 is, I was rather excited. While it does fail frequently when it comes to story, I could tell that the game had immense potential. With how colorful its world is, as long as you make good use of its characters, you could make interesting plot points. So, with that mindset, I started the 2.2 questline and it was It wasn't that interesting and was honestly more of a disappointment than anything. Even so, that feeling of potential remains. In this video, I want to go over why the story of wuwa doesn't work, and how it could be better. To start off, wuwa, Wuthering Waves, commits a sin that surprisingly a lot of gacha games also commit, not making use of its cast. What do I mean by that? Well, if you read the story and actually pay attention, it's hard to count the times when more than 2 characters are interacting outside of expositions. Basically, most character interactions in the game are only between Rover, the MC, and another side character. You rarely see genuine party dynamics, and interactions are almost exclusively one-on-one, likely by design. Let's take the 1.1 story, which was all about Jue and Mount Firmament. It starts off with Chongli, and the whole point of the first half is about catching up with Jinshi. Chongli helps you get into Mount Firmament, takes you to Hongjin, which is the main settlement of Mount Firmament. The two of you track Jinshi's steps, she goes over a lot of exposition, until finally, in a cave, you catch up to Jinshi to help her with Huanglang's Jue problem. The 3 of you group up, spend like 10 minutes together until Chongli leaves, and you do the rest of the story with just Jinshi, because Chongli has to deal with some pitiful Fraxiness. Sure, there is an explanation on why she has to leave, but that's because the writers want to separate the group, not out of necessity for the storytelling. Instead of having Jinshi and Chongli, which are close to each other, interact on screen, we only interact with them separately. It would be fine if this was the only time that this happened. Let's go to 2.2, which was the Imperator storyline, which is the Sentinel of Renacida, same as how Jue was the Sentinel of Huanglang. This story is pretty much the exact same as 1.1. You have to find Carthea, sweet Sentinel's resonator just like Jinshi, and to do that you have to do so with the help of Cantarella, a well-endowed mommy lady that acts as a guide, same as Chongli. While the 3 of you do interact here more than in 1.1, Cantarella also barely stays on screen after you meet up with Carthea, and the rest of the 2.2 questline turns into a glorified date with just Carthea. Sure, the intricacies of the stories are different, but the outline is the exact same pretty much. As soon as you meet up with a 5-star resonator that you are meant to gamble for, you spend some time with them before they are ditched for the next 5-star resonator that you also have to use the lottery machine for. It doesn't feel like they are characters, they feel like products, which they are, but that doesn't mean that they can't also be characters. And if you don't like a certain character, well, it sucks to be you. I did not like Carthea. I liked Fleur-de-Lis, not for the reason you're thinking of, but not Carthea. She just seemed boring to me, and I had to literally spend time with another character that was like her in a very similar storyline. So, when half of 2.2 is just Rover having an eccentric date with Carthea, I had a really strong desire to just press the skip button. Thankfully, I hate myself, so I didn't do it. But still, it was not an entertaining time. Thing is, I feel like if Carthea spent more time with other characters, I would have liked her more. If Contraless stayed and you made an actual party of 3, a character like Carthea would not appear as boring, because you would have another character to bounce off of. One that is not Rover. Now, I don't have any big problems with Rover. I don't think that making Rover the Jesus of everything is automatically bad. You can make any character work if you are just a good enough writer. Sadly, Rover lacks personality for the most part. For one, unlike every other character, not all of Rover's lines are voiced. This creates a jarring contrast between Rover and whatever other character he's interacting with. It's immersion breaking, and it's something that a lot of fully voiced gacha games struggle with from what I've seen. Now, I think that we can all admit that Rover is still a character, not just a self-insert. He is a self-insert, but he also has traits, is what I mean. He likes money, has amnesia, was like the coolest guy ever or something, likes money, has a tendency to quip, and is the son or daughter of Mr. Krabs. Cool. But because Rover gets very little dialogue and even less of that is voiced, you don't really get to connect with him. Because of this lack of charisma, a character like Carthea, which is a modest, good girl princess type of character, can't bounce off of Rover with good dialogue. It's as if she's throwing a ball to a cushion instead of a wall. It hurts her character, and because half the story is just her character, the entire story starts feeling like a chore. And that's the worst part. It's fixable. If wuwa just focused more on real character interactions, the story wouldn't just be tolerable, it could be genuinely fun. More than the 2.2 questline, I liked the Vault Underground storyline. In it, you get called to oversee the transfer of something into the vault as a mediator. You also have Zani with you, representing the Montellis, alongside Phoebe, representing the church. It's not a complicated storyline. It has far less exposition than the main quest, and most importantly, you do it with a gang. I know for certain that I would dislike Phoebe if she didn't get to interact with both Rover and Zani at the same time. She would have been another Carthea. I can tell because I didn't care about her in the fishing events. But when you allow her to interact with more than just a cushion, suddenly she's a far better character. For example, this one scene where the gang starts talking about this one painting that is covered up was pretty memorable. Due to that conversation, you learn more about Zani and Phoebe, and because Rover is just not that talkative, having an extra character around lets the writing breathe. Let's take a game like FGO. In an event, let's just say Summer 5. In it, you have over 10 playable characters, plus some other characters that aren't playable, all interacting in one event. Not main story, but event. And these characters are not all connected to each other. You have Sigurd and Brynhild, which flirt like all the time, then you have Emiya of all people alongside Elia, Rasaki, Tomoe, Senpai, and a lot more. And these characters all interact. What makes it special is that normally you would never even think of how these characters would exist in the same room. Imagine if the same happened in wuwa, where in one story you would have Jian, Jinshi, Encore, Bronze, Cantarello, and whatever other character that you can think of. Now, yes, the structure of FGO makes the happening of these interactions much more understandable. Still, it doesn't mean that they can't just make up some reason to have some characters hang out in some event. Writers can do whatever they want as long as they bring entertainment. They had the chance to do that with the Somme Noir event, but for whatever reason, they decided not to. Now, why? Why not? There can be a few reasons. For one, wuwa is 3D. Having these characters all animated over long events might be quite taxing on the dev team. FGO is fully sprite, so it can do whatever it wants with its cast much easier. Another much bigger thing is voice actors. Not only would all these characters' voice actors need to be free, but they also need to do everything within a limited time, and that's not getting to the fact that each language has its own set of voice actors. I'm not a voice actor, but I could imagine that the scheduling of that might be a nightmare, and the voice actors would have to record their lines possibly years in advance. Again, each version of the game is a little over a month long, which just doesn't give a lot of time for a well thought out story. The dialogue in the game, while not as cringe as something like Genshin, is still rather weird at times. This is more of a nitpick honestly, and something I just want to get out of the way. Whenever characters talk, it feels awkward, and it's something that is present for most of the game. I don't know if it's got something to do with the voice acting, the 3D models, or the feel of the world, but it's hard to get immersed into the story. Not only that, but like 60% of the dialogue is only exposition. I like world building, but not like that. Maybe it's because the dialogue is cringe and you can just feel that cringe better in language you can speak, but I don't know. Something is wrong with it and I genuinely can't tell what. It's something that Genshin struggled with back when I played that game, but in a game like Girls Frontline 2, which has Japanese voices, I don't feel the same thing. Again, more of a nitpick, but it's how I feel. Going back to the focus that wuwa puts on one-on-one interactions, there is one positive about it: the companion quests. Not all of them are great, but the best parts of wuwa are in these stories. Because they are companion quests, you don't get as much exposition and don't need to expect more, nor should you. They're focused on the companion character, and that's fine, because that's exactly what they're meant to do. For example, 2.2 is about the lore of Renesita, Imperator, sort of false religion, and a few other things, all told through 2 different dates. Gion's, Encore's, Cantarella's, and Camellia's questlines are the best stories that wuwa has to offer, especially Camellia's questline. I really like that one. And again, they're all good because they're just about the characters that you're interacting with and nothing more. Yes, you get some lore and world building from them, but nowhere near as much exposition. Sure, some of them are stinkers, like Zhezh's, but not all. At the end of the day though, they don't save wuwa from having a mediocre to boring story. The game itself has not managed to feel like anything over a 5 out of 10. Sure, something like Camellia's questline I could see being an 8 or even 9 out of 10. But the overall experience has been stuck at 5 out of 10 or below, which is a shame. A few ways that you could improve the overall experience is to make sure that Rover is voiced more often and giving him more lines. That in itself would make the writing of the game much more competent. You would also have to get rid of the plastic feel that a lot of characters have during the main story. Don't advertise them. Making them likable and interesting is a far better advertisement than just shoving them into story scenes for exposure. To make them better, the best solution would be to have these gacha characters interact with other gacha characters, like, I don't know, Alto conversing with Chongli, or Encore playing with Roshia. You don't have to get rid of Rover for these interactions to happen. You would just have to add characters. And also, don't forget about characters. Just because Jinshi has gotten a full question mark story doesn't mean that you can't use her in a future story after the end of her banner. I might not care about a character like Yin Lin now, but if in the future she gets to be a fun character, I might pull for her. Now, this is more something just for me and not an advice, but I think that we need more cool characters. Or any other kind of characters, really. The only cool character we have is Calcharo, and he doesn't even appear in the story. I like cuties. I like sexy women. I get tired when every character is a cute or sexy woman. Give me some like super badass edgelord. Give me some kind of schizo jester. Bronte's not schizo enough. Give me someone scary. Just have some variety. Despite what people tell you, other kinds of characters can sell. People like to say that husbandos don't sell, but that's not entirely true. If they aren't selling, there's a problem other than them being male. More than waifus, I want to play as cool characters. So, if a character is super awesome and full of edge, I'm going to most likely roll more for that kind of character over another sexy woman. And I don't even like dudes, not in the same way that I like women. FGO is one of the most successful gachas ever, and its arguably most successful banner was Oberon, which is a dude. Now, He was and still is one of the most important characters gameplay-wise, but more than that, I think people rolled for him because he was such a good character. He was the most successful release of that time, even though every other character was incredibly popular, and also a waifu. Units like Bob on Sith and Morgan have become some of the most popular female characters of FGO, and they couldn't reach the level of Oberon. Point is, variety can help not only with sales, but also with story. And the larger point is that if you just make Calcharo the main character of wuwa and center the story around him, the game would be a 10 out of 10.